Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Farmer, the podcast. I'm your host, Jace Young, and today's topic of discussion is this: forgive your spouse. So, guys, today's topic and conversation is going to be kind of a delicate one. We have a lot of different people that have come into Legacy Farmer over the years. And, I've said before in other podcasts, we've talked to over 1,500 family farm operations from across the country, all dealing with different challenges and problems, whether it's financial, whether it's, marital, whether it's operations, whether it's working with family, whatever it is, right? There's endless amounts of problems when it comes to running and trying to build a family farm operation and ultimately build a family legacy that you can pass on to the next generation. Now, today's topic, guys, is going to be around forgiveness. Unfortunately, we've had several people come into Legacy Farmer over the years and they've went through divorces, right? And we have a couple of different situations right now going on within our group of a couple of different people that are going through divorces currently. And it sucks. It breaks my heart, especially when you know who these people are and how down to earth and just really just good, genuine people that they are. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because a couple of the divorces that we dealt with recently, and why I mean recently, I mean over the past couple of years, of just people coming to Legacy Farmer. These are people that are married for more than 15, 20 years, right? And so the thing is, like, when I look at divorce, again, I'm not going to assume I know everything that happened or things like that. I'm literally just talking from my perspective and how I'm looking through this based on my experiences through 11 years of marriage that I've been through myself. It breaks my heart that this happens, but also too, it's like, man, you guys have been through a lot together. When it comes to the building a business, it's I'll use a term that a mentor told me a long time ago. It's called the trifecta of insanity, and I've mentioned this in other videos as well. But the trifecta of insanity is when you are trying to, 1, build a business, 2, keep a marriage together, and 3, raise kids while you're in the midst of both of the other things. And it's tough, right? Especially when the kids are young and everything. Rachel and I, we had kids right off the bat. We basically had 3 kids back to back. There's a little gap between our third and our fourth one there. But man, when those kids were young, it was really tough for us, right? I left the banking industry in 2016. We had 2 babies at that time. We had our third child in 2017. I had no money. I had nothing was working at that time. Nothing was working. I was failing through and through when it came to the business front. And, I've said this also in other podcasts that I'm very old school in what I look as my job description to my family, which I'm responsible for providing for my family and protecting my family, right? And if I'm failing on either one of those 2 fronts there, man, there's a war going on inside my head and I will beat myself up. Now, anyways, the reason I bring this up is because going through and trying to balance the trifecta of insanity, your marriage is going to take a toll, right? But the thing is, though, and what breaks my heart is, my marriage now with Rachel, yeah, we went through a lot of hard times, guys. I look back at 11 years of marriage and we got married pretty young compared to, what people are doing today. We got married, I was 23, Rachel was 25. We had our first kid at 24 and 26, so like we jumped straight into it. And the thing is, though, is looking back at those 11 years, man, there's so many things that I didn't understand what marriage meant in the beginning. You know what I mean? And our marriage is a lot stronger now because we went through some really difficult and hard times together. But I look back at all those things there. And the reason I'm talking about forgiveness today is because, man, I said so many things and did so many things that were just rooted in immaturity, to be honest, like just dumb, stupid things. And I look back now and it's like, what were you doing, dude? Like, what'd you think? And that's what I'm saying. Like when you first get married, you're all, kind of caught in the honeymoon phase and all this type of stuff. But you don't really understand what marriage is. And I don't think anybody really does until you go through hard times together, because when you go through those hard times together, the only person you can rely on is your spouse, right? But again, though, too, I think back and there were so many things that I said and did that I just regret. They were just stupid, immature things that I did. But also, too, man, there were so many times that Rachel and I were competing against one another, I felt like, or at least I was. And it's like, it took me a long time to realize that, hey, we're on the same team here, right? I'm not competing with you. You're not competing with me. If there's a problem, we need to solve it together, not turn on each other with that. And also, too, for those of you with young kids and everything, it's really easy to turn on your spouse when you're overstimulated, frustrated with the kids, and it's just constant chaos at the house. I totally get that. But anyways, I say all this with you guys is because with these couples and everybody that are going through divorces inside the ag industry and stuff like that, it's like, man, if I continue, or if I were at a stage right now where I was continuing to hold grudges against Rachel for the things that she said to me when we were younger and immature and stuff like that, I'm not saying I'm not immature now. I still have a long ways to go as far as my growth and development as a husband and a father. I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, guys. So I want to make that clear. I make mistakes all the time. When I go and I meet God, I feel like he's going to have a list of like 500 pieces of paper saying like, hey, can you explain these things? Looking back at those things, it's like, if I continue to hold grudges on those things or just live in the past, essentially, man, yeah, I can see how people that have been married for 15 to 20 years or even longer end up in divorce because they just never forgive. And the reason I say all that is because looking at that experience, Rachel and I were both growing up. We're still growing up, right? And the thing is, like, when I look at my marriage now, it's like you're picking a person because you love them, but you're picking a person that you're choosing to grow up with. And when you grow up, you guys all know this, right? Even with little kids and everything, kids go through emotional stages, right? And sometimes if they're going through something and they don't know how to mentally wrap their head around it, or they don't have the awareness to understand what's happening in the situation, handle it calmly, they freak out. And guess what? We do the same thing as adults because we have no idea what's going to happen. We're constantly going to face different decisions and different challenges and stuff like that. And the toughest thing about being a business owner as a man is that we take all that frustration that we have in the business throughout the day. And a lot of times, yeah, we take it out on our wife and kids at home. And obviously I've done that thousands of times, it seems like, and there's nothing, but regret I have there. But anyways, I say all that because we need to recognize that even as adults, we're still growing up, right? And me holding grudges or not forgiving Rachel for things that she's done to me in the past and vice versa, it's not going to serve us going forward. Right? It absolutely serves zero purpose. And the reason I say this is because if you've been married for more than 20 years and now you're going through a divorce, I hate it because it's like, man, you guys built a life together, right? And for some of the couples here that have been in Legacy Farmer that are going through this, they built, some of them built multi-million dollar operations, a big balance sheet, solid equity, stuff like that. They built something together, and to throw it all away because we just can't forgive the other person for the mistakes they made when they were younger, when the reality was we're all growing up at the same time. And I read this quote quite a while back, and it really resonated with me. It said, the things that we don't recognize and understand as children is that while our parents are watching us grow up, we're watching them grow up at the same time. Right? We don't expect our kids to know certain things about what they're about to face in life, right? They're young. Same thing is applicable to us as adults, though, too. I have no idea what I'm going to face. All my daughters, our oldest one is 10. When they get to the teenage years, I have no idea what I'm going to face, and I am scared to death about that. But the reality is, though, it's like, how can you expect me to know? Just because I'm an adult doesn't mean I know what's going to happen there going forward. And I guarantee you, when we go through those phases with the girls, I'm going to make mistakes. Rachel's going to make mistakes. I'm probably going to say things that I regret because emotions are high in that specific moment. I don't know what's going on, and I just haven't learned anything from that. And the thing is I feel like God's going to put us all through these hard times and challenging times in life because that's part of the development He has for us, right? And He's getting us ready for the next thing He's bringing into our journey, and we have to go through that. But man, those times can really just pull a couple down if you cannot learn to just forgive the other person and recognize that, hey, you know what? If I was talking to Rachel, hey, babe, you know what? I was extremely immature back then. I know we both were. I know we were both growing, but just so you know, like I wouldn't have wanted to go through that with any other person. I'm excited for where we're going forward. I think looking back and kind of looking at my definition of marriage and everything now, man, marriage is about going through tough times and still sticking together, right? And just understanding that, hey, yeah, we're choosing to grow up in life together. And that is going to involve an endless amount of challenges and problems that we have to overcome. But that is how growth happens as a couple. But also too, that's what makes a marriage meaningful. That's why I hate to see people that are unfortunately in the position where they're done with their spouse and they're throwing things away because they haven't learned to just really look at the past through a different lens and try to understand where the other person is coming from, and understanding that the other person was in no way trying to hurt the other individual. It's just where they were at as far as their development as a human being at that stage in life. We make mistakes. Like we make mistakes, and it does no good and serves zero purpose for myself or my girls if I sat there and just held grudges against Rachel, right? For a lot of you guys, you're going to know what I'm talking about in the first 10 years of marriage. It's like you're still in college or high school and you're bringing up shit that happened 4 or 5 years ago. Are you kidding me? Like, how immature is that, Jace? You know what I mean? So anyways, I share this podcast with you today because I feel like this is happening a lot across the industry. It's happening more than you or I probably know or understand. My only viewpoint and perspective is from the families in Legacy Farmer that have went through this. But man, it breaks my heart because a lot of those conversations, you can just tell that, man, the people going through that, they have a hard time forgiving for things that were said in the past. And I'm talking things that were 15, 20 years ago. which is just crazy to me. But maybe for some people, man, that maybe they were really serious and it just really impacted them. So I'm not trying to say that, hey, you should never get divorced or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just giving you my perspective on this and trying to help give you a different perspective. If you've had a similar experience with me with marriage and going through and trying to raise kids and have a good marriage and build a business at the same time, and you've made some mistakes along the way, said some things you shouldn't have or did some things you shouldn't have. At the end of the day, the only way to solve those things and move on from them, from my perspective and how I see the world right now, is just to forgive, right? Forgive, move on. Doesn't mean you're going to forget it or anything like that, but it serves zero purpose to not forgive your spouse, and more importantly, forgive yourself too. Right? And if you're a guy right now and you're listening to this, I'm talking to you. You have to learn to forgive yourself, and I'm speaking to myself right now at the same time, just as well, just so you guys know. You have to learn to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you have made, because holding this guilt and shame over your head, again, does not serve you, does not serve your family, does not serve any purpose at all. Another quote that I read a long time ago is that the mistakes of the past were just mistakes. They weren't a life sentence. But for a lot of men, like, we treat it as a life sentence. And again, I'm not saying that women don't do that. I'm just speaking from the man's perspective. But anyways, yeah, at the end of the day, we got to learn to forgive others and forgive ourselves in order to move forward and actually have a happy life at some point. Move forward and keep taking, steps each day by day. And hey, we'll see what happens. But anyways, guys, hope you found this message valuable. I hope it was just an eye-opening type of podcast and message for you. And most importantly, I hope you take action because of it. So my friends, that concludes today's episode. We will catch you on the next one.